Hey everybody, it's InnoVision, and we've been working on this for a few weeks now, and what we're going to show you today is the ultimate radioactive Mutagen Man toy mod. In order to pull this mod off, we had to figure out a way to cram a tiny computer into this Mutagen Man toy. Mutagen Man is from NECA's TMNT tune line. We picked up an extra Mutagen Man and Ace Duck in one of our blind boxes. If you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely check out our blind box videos. They're gnarly. Not only were the blind boxes an excellent way to fill in gaps in my collection, it was a way for us to pick up a few extras. And this is perfect because we have so many awesome toy customization videos coming down the pipeline. Mutagen Man is one of those characters that I feel like is underappreciated. Back in the 80s, when Mirage Studios was brainstorming toy ideas with Playmates Toys, Mutagen Man is one of the characters that Peter Laird came up with. And originally, this was a character that was supposed to be half primate, half insect, and his internal organs would be visible. His name was also See More Guts. And in working with Playmates Toys, they kind of softened the image of this character, but he remained one of these characters whose internal organs were visible. This is due to the accident he had with the radioactive ooze. Now, to pull off the ultimate radioactive Mutagen Man mod, we had to cram this tiny computer into this toy. Now, I always thought that this was such a cool character. I also always felt like I should see his organs pulsating or throbbing or almost have like a breathing effect, because he's only able to stay alive because of the ooze and the contraption with this tank on him. I wanted something more than just painting him with glow-in-the-dark paint. That just wouldn't do it for me. But a little history first. In the early 1900s, glow-in-the-dark paint used to actually be made out of radioactive isotopes. And we later learned that this isn't healthy for you and it destroys the structure of your DNA. So that's a no-go. Since then, glow-in-the-dark paints are light-reactive chemicals. It's kind of short-lived. You can charge it up with light source, but if you were to use ultraviolet or UV light, you can turbocharge glow-in-the-dark paint. UV light emits UV radiation, some of it visible and some of it invisible. And not only does it make your glow-in-the-dark paints or substrates glow brighter, it also makes them glow longer. One of the things I love about this Mutagen Man action figure is the modular design of the figure. He comes completely apart. All of this purple casing will be able to be removed, and the front kind of glass looking plate, it comes off so you can replace his head that's attached to his brainstem, because he comes with a swappable head in here. This figure almost naturally lends itself to customization, and your creativity is the only limit. When developing the blueprints for this mod, I didn't want just a simple blinking light. I mean, that just it doesn't bring it to life. I really wanted a pulsating, kind of throbbing, breathing, oozing effect. And the way to pull that off, I leveraged something called pulse width modulation theory. So many existing systems use pulse width modulation. For example, your radar and weather systems modulate chirps and waveforms to figure out the distance of clouds. In our case, we want to modulate the power source going to a light source. We want to gradually crank up the power to get it to go very bright, and we want to gradually crank it back down to get it to go dim. And so that makes it it's almost like defined on a continuum versus just on, off, on, off. In order to achieve this modulation, we need an integrated circuit or a small embedded computer. And we needed a computer that we can make fit inside this toy. Other design considerations besides the computer having to be small, we wanted something that's easily reprogrammable. This is very cool because even if we establish a glowing or breathing pattern, we can change at any point in time. So we can do all kinds of different patterns. I focused on one design pattern here today, but there's so many possibilities for future revisions of this. So I opted for making space in his backpack to be able to fit our microcontroller. And in order to do this, I started drilling holes into his backpack. I started with smaller drill bits and then worked my way up to much larger drill bits. You can almost fit your pinky finger in there. After drilling out an entire cavity here, I filed down the plastic shards and I clipped away all the excess. So that way I can easily insert and remove this tiny microcontroller. All right. We're in. And I needed it to be smoothed out so we don't damage the unit as we're working on it. Plus I had to make additional space for small electrical components like electrical wires that are going to be powering our light source. After I finished drilling his backpack, I actually drilled a hole straight through his middle to his back, so that way I can fit the UV LED light source. Now that we have enough space to fit our electronics, we need a working circuit. Now for the moment of truth. Alright, it works. And I built a few prototypes before I settled on what we finally installed in here. And I wrote a few small embedded C++ programs to control the modulation of the built-in light source on this RP2040 microcontroller. So each one of these microcontrollers, the spec says that it should have a RGB light. And so I got all of the modulation arithmetic correct by using the built-in light source. And then I started to build a circuit for our external UV LED light. I soldered our UV LED in series with a resistor and hooked it up to the 3.3 volt line on this RP2040 microcontroller. Then I hooked up the other line to the ground. And so that gives us the ability to control it using something called GPIO, or general purpose input-output pins. Now that we got a working microcontroller, we got a light, we've got power going to it, the next thing I did was paint it with glow-in-the-dark paint. But I didn't go willy-nilly with our paint. I really focused on painting in areas that would optimize the glowing and pulsing effect for our single-point light source. It's alive! Yes, it's alive, Igor! Ha 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 ha! Take that! The radioactive mutagen that Seymour came into contact with was so unstable that it dissolved Seymour's body into somehow a still living brain, eyes, mouth, and spinal cord. In order to survive, Shredder, Rocksteady, and Bebop built Seymour a special containment suit that he was forced to wear. His torso was contained in a tank of mutagen to preserve what remained of his body until a solution could be found. I don't feel so good. Hit that like button, subscribe. You don't want to miss out on all the mods and customizations we've got coming down the pipeline.